welcome to your English class. Children, today we are going to do another very important topic from your grammar, voice, the active and the passive voice. In the link given herewith, you shall be explained the various rules guiding the doing of the exercises of active and passive voice. Go through the link very carefully. Now, children, in this lesson, we shall learn what voices of verb are, that is, what is the active and the passive voice, the difference to differentiate between the active voice and the passive voice, convert an active voice sentence into a passive voice sentence, and then how to convert a passive voice sentence back into an active voice sentence. Now, what are voices of verb? Now, in traditional grammar, children, voices of verb is defined as the quality of the verb that indicates whether its subject acts upon it or it is acted upon. There are two types, the active voice and the passive voice. Now, when is the verb said to be in the active voice? The active voice, children, is the normal voice. This is the voice that we use most of the time in normal speech. In the active voice, children, observe that the object receives the action of the verb. For example, look at the sentence over here. Marlon mailed the letter. Now, in this particular sentence, Marlon is the subject, mailed is the verb, and what did she mail? Marlon mailed what? The letter. The letter is the object. So, the subject is doing the action on the object. Marlon mailed the letter. Such a sentence where the subject is the doer of the action is said to be in the active voice. Let us look at a few more examples. The dog jumped onto the boy. Now over here the dog is the subject. The dog jumped onto the boy. That is, the subject does the action on the object. Similarly, Christy will give a book report to the class. So Christy is the subject, is doing the verb, it is giving the report book to the class, to the object. So again, the subject is doing the action on the object. Now children, how do we convert a sentence from the active to the passive voice? Now children, in order to convert a sentence from the active to the passive voice, we have to move the active sentence direct object into the sentence's subject slot. That is, the subject and the object, they interchange positions when changing from active to passive voice. That is, the subject of the active voice becomes the object of the passive voice, and the object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. Then place the active sentence's subject into the phrase beginning with the preposition by. And then add a form of the auxiliary verb to be to the main verb and change the main verb's form. So, Marlon mailed the letter will become the letter was mailed by Marlon. So, see, the active in the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action, whereas the same thing can be written the other way around, where the object receives the action from the subject, as in the passive voice. Now children, what is passive voice? Now children, the passive voice is less usual. In the passive voice, the subject receives the action of the verb. We use the passive voice when we want to make the active object more important. Now, the letter was mailed by Marlon. Now, in this example, see, if we write it in blocks, the letter becomes the subject, was mailed is the verb, and object is Marlon. So, in this particular sentence, the subject is receiving the action from the object. Let's take a look at a few examples. The boy was jumped on by the dog. The subject is the boy. He is jumped on by the dogs. That is, the subject is receiving the action from the object. Similarly, a book report will be given by Christy to the class. Report is the subject, will be given is the verb, and by Christy is the object. So once again, over here in the passive voice, the subject is receiving the action from Christy, that is the object in the sentence. Now, how do we convert a passive voice sentence in the passive voice to the active voice? First of all, children, move the passive sentences subject into the active sentences direct object slot. That is, the subject and the object, once again, they will interchange their position. Next, remove the auxiliary verb be from the main verb and change the main verb form if needed. That is, in the passive voice, it is the letter was mailed. So, it will remain in the same tense, mailed the letter. Simple past will remain in the simple past tense. Next, place the passive sentences object of the preposition by into the subject slot. That is, the object of the passive becomes the subject of the active. That is, by Marlin in the passive voice, Marlin becomes the subject in the active voice. Now, children, carefully go through this list that is given to you of how the tenses are used in the passive voice. For example, the simple present will be it is washed. In simple past, it was washed. Future, it will be washed by so and so. Conditional, it would be washed by so and so. So, go through this list given to you very carefully. This tells you about how tenses are used. For example, the main verb is wash. Then how the tenses are used in the passive voice. I hope all of you have understood how to change a sentence from the active to the passive voice and vice versa. In case of any doubts, do post in the comment section of the Google Classroom. Till then, stay safe. God bless you all, children.